you. Well, hello and welcome to this Know-How Digital Coffee session on the new event. My name is Farah Qureshi, and you might know me from my work at Water Alliance or from the previous Know-How sessions. So we have been organizing these sessions in order to inform our network on the discussions we have with industry leaders and influencers in our sector, but also on topics that we think should be on your marketing radar. So today is going to be all about the new event, but before we start off with our two guests, I think it's good to say that if you have any questions, please let me know via the chat function, or if you're comfortable with waiting until the end, we will also be doing a live Q&A, so you can turn on your camera and turn on your microphone and ask your questions then. So the topic for today is really about the new event, because the freeze on live events earlier this year really forced our industry to get creative and get more digital. So we've seen a lot of Zoom meetings, we've seen virtual trainings, virtual conferences, and fully digital exhibitions. And I mean, with the live events slowly getting back to their return, so for instance, Aquatech in China, I think it encourages us to just tap into the best of both worlds to see where this new event or this hybrid event can lead us. So therefore, we've invited two fantastic experts in the field. So a very warm welcome for Milena and Annette Bos. So thank you for being here and joining us. So
thank you for having us.
Well, sure, Annette. So you are the director of Aquatech, and I think most of the participants already know you, but for those who don't, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, where we can know you from?
Okay, I am responsible for the global brand Aquatech. So many of you, I think I have met hopefully at Aquatech Amsterdam or China or somewhere else in the world. I love working with people. I'm a very strong believer in personal connections. I like very much embracing the new digital opportunities and linking with our normal ways of doing events. And I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, and then next up, we have our marcom-ista, as I would like to call you, Milena Yordanova. Tell us a little bit more about DuPont, because that's a brand that hasn't been too long in the game since it has just been launched. So what do you do as a marcom-ista for DuPont?
Thank you, Farah, and the team for inviting me. And I really like the term marcom-ista. So, I've been with DuPont Water Solution for the last couple of years, but DuPont as a brand is not a recent brand, and the water solution business has a long history and heritage in the water industry for more than 40 years, coming from another great company, Dow Chemical. So we have had several challenges as marketing and promotional activities and communication to let and to inform our audience about this change and to create brand awareness, and events have helped us a lot during the last year or so, and I hope that they will still help us in the future.
Well, you speak about events that help you, but could you tell us a little bit more about why events are so important to you?
Yeah, sure. So for those of you who don't know me, just a little bit of introduction. I'm leading the marketing communications organization for the EMEA business in DuPont Water Solutions, and as said, working for the last couple of years, journalist by education, but always interested in marketing and promotion and digitization. So when I joined the business, the water business, it was still under the Dow umbrella in 2017. We realized that we had more than 60 events in the pipeline. So we decided to completely rebuild our strategy about promotion and about marketing and what we envision events can bring us. So we set up what are the key expectations for us from an event and what are our main objectives. And this, of course, as always, and I believe that most of you share my experience and humble opinion here, 5 to 6 objectives: communication and interaction with the stakeholders, customers, partners, prospects, media; exposure, brand awareness, visibility of our product and services; lead generation, content nurturing. So we are distributing all the latest achievement, press releases, product development during these type of events and roadshows. Create awareness of our latest acquisitions and our latest product portfolios and solutions. And probably the most important one, which cannot be replaced by virtual and digital means, strengthening and building this face-to-face and this real connection with our partners, and long-term partnership and collaboration with customers. So when we decided that these were the key objectives that we wanted to achieve through events, we also decided that we need to look at how we play and where we play in regards to events, and reshape completely our strategy. For us, these were the 2 most important things. Where to play. So we really made a very good effort on selecting the key and targeted events where we could create the biggest impact for our organization and for our business. And if you can see on the screen, we reduced our presence from more than 60 events in 2017 to less than 20 in 2020 in the pipeline. Unfortunately, almost none of these could take place in the planned way during 2020, but we hope that we will come back to this in the near future. And how to play is really strategically focus and making these events not only a tactic, but integrated into a overall communication and marketing strategy and plan.
Well, it's good that you mentioned that, because I was really happy to see part of your strategy being at Aquatech China earlier this week.
Absolutely. Events will always remain one of the key elements for us. As I said, nothing can replace the strength, the relationship that we build with our partners, the access to different stakeholders that we achieve during these type of trade shows. And we were very happy that Aquatech China took place actually in a safe way and in a way that we could achieve our objectives.
Well, it was good to see you there and back to your game. So Annette, this is also where I want to bring you in, because this week has been a lot. So as I was saying to you earlier, I'm really happy that you could join us today. So Annette, tell us more about the things that you have been doing, because it's so much. Where to start?
It's where to start, because of course last half year was crazy for us in reinventing our business from time to time, changing our perspectives, making new plans, and the next day they were already old. So but it's all about creating business connections, valuable and preferable face-to-face, because like Milena said, there's nothing above a personal face-to-face connection, a memory you share together, an experience which will help you build very much your relation. So I'm happy, if you go to the next slide, to present you some photos about how an exhibition works in times of Corona. You see very safe measures, facial recognition, apps, etc. So we were very happy that this could take place, because in China, exhibitions are a very important part of doing business. We had our conference, so yeah, more than happy. For the people who are not so familiar with Aquatech, we're a very old brand. We started already in 1964 with a very small, with a very national show. And since then we developed into an international exhibition in Amsterdam, going from there to China, Mexico, and started our journey online in 2018 and added a high-level international conference to the Aquatech Amsterdam. Next slide. Oh, yeah. So what is our slogan? For us, it's very important to focus on together we make water work. We have a global reach, but we cannot do that only by ourselves. We need a lot of partners, friends, and contacts to do that. Our strategy we changed a couple of years ago in 2018 from just being an event which is taking place at a venue at a certain time to have a real interaction and continuous engagement with our audience. So we can focus more on customer ROI because we know more about our customers. We could build partnerships around our events. We could develop our portfolio and focus very much on concepts and content.
So you were already in a very fortunate position then in that way.
Yeah, and I will share some of our learnings and some of our pre-corona successes we had by starting this. If you give me the next slide. Yeah, for us, what we said, what our mantra was, content is king. So we start working with Tom, as many of you know, and creating valuable content for our Aquatech community. Because with no good content or replacing content from others, we couldn't get at our goal. But we always said engagement is queen and she rules the house. And that means that engaging with our audience, with our solution provider, with our potential visitors is very integrated part of our strategy. So that's where we always think about how we make the content, where we position them, how we measure it, what are our KPIs. So we made a long list of things we wanted to achieve.
Well, I know somebody else who always says content is king and engagement is queen, and I think you appointed him as a content director as well. So accidentally, he is here too. So Tom, hello, good to see you.
Hello, hello.
Hello. So I think it's really interesting what Annette says, because the thing is, creating this virtual community, I mean, that had to be some sort of change. So how do you make sure that you speak to both the digital audience and the audience at home? How do you ensure that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'm just kind of picking up on what Annette said. I think we really need, Aquatech had a long-term strategy. I think when people think of content, they perhaps misunderstand it and think, you know, you write a couple of press releases, put it on a website and that's content taken care of, but you need to think much longer term than that, which is what Annette and Aquatech did. And it's, I think the other thing to mention about the strategy that, you know, we started 2 years ago, which seems crazy. I can't believe it's September 2018, it's flown by, is there's a lot to it. There's a lot of, it's a team effort. So as well as the kind of the vision and the investment from Annette, you had the marketing team overseen by Annalie Koeman in terms of perhaps internal processes we need to adapt, and then tying in very closely with the digital side. So Emma Morrison on the digital team in terms of really making sure the content strategy and the digital strategy and the business strategy all kind of gel and move at the same time. So yeah, we did quite a few things in terms of just evaluating where there was a gap in the market for content. And it came back to that core sort of Aquatech business objective of making sure people, you know, giving people a platform to connect. So we looked at the content and thought about creating more personalized content around the people behind the processes. So those more profile pieces that we think people, you know, they enjoy and share. And then in terms of kind of pre and post COVID, I think Aquatech was, because of that, we already had 18 months plus behind us. We were in a really good position where we'd already increased the site traffic, we'd increased the content, you know, velocity, that we had an increased number of people already coming to the site, regardless of what happened with COVID and event use. So in terms of, that's probably a long-winded answer to your question, Farah, but how do you sort of make sure you're appealing to, I guess, the core Aquatech audience as well as new people? Is I mean, we basically broke it down and looked at the core topics and technology areas within Aquatech. So you can see the tagging above the video there. So from water treatment to wastewater to industrial, and then breaking it down into technologies to make sure that we're covering the core subjects and content that are replicated in the live event itself. So that basically if people, the existing Aquatech database, the content would appeal to them because you would think they're coming to the show to find out more about these particular technologies or processes, but also for people interested in these areas that, you know, we would appeal to new people beyond the existing Aquatech database. But it's been an amazing sort of adventure, a ride. You know, we've learned a lot, right, Annette, over the 2 years. And yeah, I'm kind of glad.
Made a lot of mistakes. I mean, that's part of the learning.
Well, they weren't visible for us, so I think you did a pretty great job there.
We won't go into too much detail on this call about those, but but yeah. So I think that was part of the strategy, and then also during COVID, we covered a lot of COVID content at the start. One strategy we had was again tapping into that personal connection. So we did some video interviews with people like utility leaders about advice during COVID, as well as actually the CEO of a big technology company who suffered from COVID, so his personal experience. So that coverage did quite well, but we also put together sort of a practical piece about water industry advice on COVID. And I think that's up to about 30,000 page views during the period. So it brought a lot of traffic to our site. But again, it was practical based from a water utility perspective. But we were also cautious not to oversaturate because there's so much content on COVID. There was a danger that people were kind of exhausted with that. So we kind of moved on fairly quickly afterwards as well.
And I think that is one of our keys, measure your performances and be critical and look what's happening. And that's the advantage of digital. In that fact, it's easier than face-to-face events because you can directly measure what's happening and you can act on that.
100%. Yeah, it's about the data.
You can adjust your tactics as a consequence to these measures. Otherwise, you keep blind and you just shout everywhere, all directions, and you don't have a targeted communication. And as a user of this strategic content directions during last Aquatech, I can only agree on how important was the content creation, the channel distribution, and as well these key performance indicators that you were sharing and that helped us achieve as an exhibitor our goals.
Yeah, and I think that's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. This is also something that I've been seeing a lot. So I think this is one of the examples that you just talked about.
Yeah, this is cross-channel and checking, measuring everything. So it's quite a complex process. So you can move on to the next slide. I can see. Yeah, this is what I just wanted to share. The results for 2019, they were spectacular. We grew 775% more in traffic, which is amazing. And so all the marks on being already a year in online gave us so much head start in organizing a very good Aquatech. If you go to the next slide, then you can see what happened in 2020. If you see the left above, you see the very high, yeah, it's not live, so I cannot point on the but if you see under your left corner, you see the peak, that is the COVID article, but you see that we have been constantly growing and even above our own targets. And we can now almost recognize, or we can recognize over 500,000 people online, and we can email 160,000 people. So it gives us so much a head start to create valuable connections. But one last thing I want to add, we do this to create a database and to make valuable connections between solution providers and buyers. That is, it's not our end goal to have a lot of traffic on our website, but it's our motor, our means to an end.
So I know that content-wise, and that is something because I've been working with you for about 2 years now as one of your partners. So I work for Water Alliance. And the thing is, one of the first things you said to me, Annette, was that as Aquatech, we're always looking for new innovations. I can imagine that being harder now. So how do you pursue that?
Uh, we talk with a lot of our clients. We see where people are, how they are behaving online. For example, we have been looking in circular economy a lot of times, and then we were posting content on that, but we didn't got the traction we thought we were getting. But then we changed it into water reuse and resource recovery, and then we got off, and that will help us to find also the innovations, the new people, and that is also where we are working on how do we get the innovation online, because innovation is really something people need to see. It's a lot of times the things they haven't been thinking of, so they're not looking for it actively online. So that is going to be one of our next focus.
Well, thanks for that.
Yeah, and this is also one of our new things is breakouts, and this is one of our experiments. And not to downgrade it, but we thought we're not going to do these huge webinars that mimic our show. We don't want to have 20,000 people in our webinar. We want to have very meaningful discussions and conversations on very targeted topics, so that on a very targeted audience. So that was our meaning for the Aquatech online breakout. And what I'm really proud of that is that we have 85 as an average that stay the whole session. And I know from my colleagues within the RAI, from other brands, that is a major achievement, because no one is doing that. So this is for us a very good indicator.
This is very valuable. Absolutely.
So this is an example. So you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so what I just is my message: integrate online, offline, integrate your content with your engagement, and not and it's like I can only confirm what Milena said. Just don't make from an exhibition a week in a year where everything should happen, but if you integrate your online, your offline, your communication, your marketing, your press, and make a story, and I think that is something Milena did very well. Make a story for the year and have the event in the middle or almost at the end, and then because events are expensive, so they need to be rewarding.
Yeah, I can echo this comment, Annette, and actually I would like to build on this one. One of the huge successes of Aquatech Amsterdam last year for DuPont was exactly the collaboration with the RAI, with the Aquatech team, and the creation of this integrated campaign for a longer period, not only during a week of the physical event, but actually for 8 months, starting 6 months before the event, and then following even a couple of months after the event with content and with presentation and presence all around the venue, online, offline, and different tactics. So this really works, and the results outperformed our last two trade shows, Aquatech trade shows, in terms of lead generation and in terms of relationship establishment.
Yeah, and I think that is because you integrate it in your whole marketing strategy. And then you have so much more exposure, so much more traction, and you are so much more visible for the visitors who are normally going for the big part unplanned, but they recognize things they have seen before, so they act on that.
So you have to be more than the event. That's
Yeah.
what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also to make the most out of it, because all these visitors also invest a lot of time and effort to go there, and they feel very welcome if they have been with the brand before.
Well, thanks for that. Milena, so you are all about integration and being more than an event and building around events. So I've seen you do a lot of more alternative activities. So could you tell us a little bit more about this strategy?
Yes, we have an amazing team who is taking care of all our digital activities and webinar platforms. And fortunately enough, we were well prepared for these challenging times because we already had a webinar platform that we started using several years ago, but we were not using it properly until now that we really needed to find an alternative to a trade show. For us, when early this year, when all of a sudden we couldn't attend to all our traditional events like Global Water Summit was about to take place in March in Madrid, it was cancelled. So we said, okay, how do we achieve our targets and our objectives? And one of the objectives that we had is how do we educate our stakeholders and partners? How do we push the content, the great content that we have internally to the external world without these physical connections? How do we build awareness about our brand? Then we realized that we had this webinar platform, and our team, led by Laura Galindo and several other colleagues, really revamped it completely in terms of interface, in terms of content, and in terms of way of reaching out and promoting the webinars. And in only few months, we have seen amazing results. From 6th of February to July 13, you can see in this presentation, we've run 26 webcasts only in English and several more in local Chinese or Vietnamese languages. So only for the English webcast, we have had more than 12,000 registrations and more than 7,000 attendees, which means an attendance rate of 60%. So it is a very high conversion rate, given that we are just not just, but we are solution provider. We are not a content provider. Usually, we are manufacturers. So this was one way of reaching out to university, to NGOs, to different stakeholders that we usually don't deal with and that we don't connect with. And as Annette was saying, for the Aquatech webinars, the engagement rate was extremely high, 3.86. So most of the people above 80% was staying until the end of the full webcast and webinar. So one of the key things or key improvements that the team also did was reducing the length of the webinars. Initially, we had it to 1 hour. Now we have it around 40 minutes, which means 25-30 minutes of content, and then Q&A sessions. We are creating the Blue Talks, which are really completely live sessions with different thought leaders in the industry. So it is not a one-way communication. It is really where we can have a conversation with the audience.
Well, thank you for that. And I was a bit distracted, sorry, because I had a question coming in. And that is a question from Andrew Walker. And he says, how often do you organize these webinars, Milena?
Currently, we have one webinar even every couple of weeks. So really very often, as you can see, 26 webcasts from February to July. So quite a lot.
Wow.
There are some weeks that we have even a couple of them at the same time. They are very targeted, and what we have done very well, and the team has done an amazing job, is really to define very well our target audience profile. And this is the key success factor. You cannot just invite and target everyone. If your content is good and our content is good, and it is a very specific content in one area, then you have really to promote it to the people who are interested in this area. So I don't have the statistics here, but from each invitation, really the registration rate, is amazing. Our overall database is more than 12,000, but so the attendance rate is 60%, but the registration one is even higher.
Wow.
And many of them are watching this on demand. This is another success factor nowadays, with people staying at home, with work-life balance in being challenging. We cannot look this and watch this on live, but we have seen a peak of on-demand requests.
Well, that is great news. In this time, it's great that you have numbers like this, and this is also one to clarify.
Yeah, so this is just an example of the importance to be agile and to adapt very quickly to the situation. So as said, we had this platform, but you can see the numbers. Just before the coronavirus outbreak, we had attendees and registration around 300, 100 depending. And once we revamped very quickly and adapted the content, you can see the peak between in March, one peak, and then late April, May, another one. And this is because of the lockdowns, where people were consuming great tons of content online, actually.
Yeah.
Wow, impressive numbers. So
Indeed.
those are not the only alternative activities I saw from you. So storytelling, I think that's one of your great additions to whatever
Absolutely.
you're doing. Yeah.
So we were, our Marcom team met together, and we were brainstorming how do we achieve another of our objectives that we would have achieved during a trade show or during a booth. At Aquatech Amsterdam, we had an astonishing booth, or at least in my perspective, where we had platform to tell our stories in different parts of the venue. So be it in an industrial users experience forum, a desalination forum, on our own booth, on the channel, on the screens, meeting with people on our promo points in the different entrances. But this is no longer available this year. So how do we tell people the great things that we are doing around the world for helping provide safe, clean water to the people and protecting really the planet? So we decided to create a newsletter that is distributed every month to all our existing database of prospects and to all interested stakeholders who are willing to register. And we really acted very quickly, created a nice and neat template and relevant content from case studies to interesting facts and figures to interviews and articles. Videos are really picking up as well. And we are pushing this proactively to customers, prospects, universities, and different type of stakeholders. And you can see as well on the screen the total open rate of this emailing campaign is 22% or a little bit higher than 22%. And according to different benchmarks like MailChimp or HubSpot, this is a really amazing achievement as well, because usually the open rates vary for general industry, not for the water industry, but the general average industry is between 19%, even lower, 15%, and in the best scenario, it's between 20 and 21, and we have achieved 22.3%. So it's a great work, and we hope to keep increasing the level of participation there. And we have also established a promotion around this newsletter. People can register through our LinkedIn, through our Twitter channels. We have it on our website, and we have a dedicated landing page for the people to contact us and really to reach out to us and get the questions answered immediately without even getting to our customer contact center at DuPont. So by this newsletter, they are getting directly to me or to my colleagues in the different regions.
Well, it is good that you mentioned that, and also the booth at Aquatech, because last year was my first Aquatech as well, and the minute I walked in, I was literally, Annette, blown away by everything you were doing there, because it was really, you know, it had the wow effect. And then I saw your stand, Milena, and I was like, wow, this is pretty impressive. So one of the first questions I had with the freeze of these live events was, how are they going to pursue this? And I think you've done a really good job here, and you too, Annette.
Thank you.
Everything is so structured and so organized, and I think having this kind of content on your website, it's just as welcoming as the event you're organizing. So that's a really good job you've done right there.
Thank you.
So the social media campaigns. So
well, this is something that I already mentioned, but
yeah.
Through our channels, our own business channels, and also corporate channels, we are promoting this type. We are using our own workforce as ambassadors through different promotion. They are using their email, their own LinkedIn channels and email signature banners just to promote it. And here at the right hand side bottom, you see some of the good comments and positive feedback that we've received already from the first edition of the newsletter.
So I'm not your only fan. That is good to know.
Thankfully,
no,
not.
it looks brilliant. It's really welcoming, and I think that is what you need. If you don't have live events, this is what you need. This kind of content.
We know that it cannot replace the live events, and we just think that it is a brilliant addition to the events that we hope will take place from 2021. And this is media relations. At the booth, we used to have interviews and media outreach. So we really dedicated our time, not traveling, but to connect with the journalists and editors. And we pushed more than 10 articles in different channels and sources during the last months. And before that, I mentioned about the videos. So we have amazing videos, but unfortunately, they were not reaching enough people through our YouTube channel. So we really revamped as well our strategy, invested a little bit on paid campaigns as well, which worked quite well. So back to the KPI point that Annette made, we were measuring this every week, basically, and adjusting the social media campaigns, but basically live, to improve the performance and the achievement of the campaign. And just an example, in 1 month only, one of the videos ran from 300 views to 21,000 views.
Wow.
Yeah.
And which video was that? Can we see that one here?
There are no hyperlinks, but this is the fourth one, the localized water treatment facility. This is a case study in Ethiopia where DuPont Water Solution donated some of our elements, membranes, and our workforce expertise, and we helped clean the water and purify the water from an excess of fluoride in Kenya and Ethiopia.
Wow. So back to you, Annette, because we've talked about the content you have with this digital session, but I think you also have to embrace the digital and hybrid opportunities that come with it. So I've seen a lot of bold moves from Aquatech, I could say. So it's great that you want to share a little bit more of that, because a webinar studio going hybrid, where to start again?
Yeah, I was supposed to start my presentation with the empty hole in the Rhine, which is very painful to see for me and my colleagues and has a very big impact on our organization. But we're organizers, so we sit together and think, okay, what can we do? So because for us, of course, this is a very difficult time, but there are also a lot of exhibitors and other show organizers and visitors who do not have access to markets anymore, who do not have access to new technology or can generate leads. So we have been working together, and I think that is the advantage of being a brand in a bigger corporation, that we have been thinking, okay, what could we do, what our customers could be interested in? So we started a professional webinar studio because I think it needs to be looking good and professional. And we have now a concept out there for external organizers, but also for our brands to use, for the RAI brands, which Aquatech is one of them, is the stage is yours. It's a fully corona-proof hybrid stage, which will stay there the whole autumn, and everyone who wants to do safe corporate events and do a mixture between live and online, and that's what we call hybrid, can use this whole completely facilitated, so it's an easy plug and play concept. Same is if you want to have a smaller professional webinar, we have a webinar studio with good connections, etc. So, and what we are setting up are some really hybrid events where we mixture things that happen in the RAI with things that happen online. Some of our first ones, Green Tech, will be end of October, and we really focus on the connection. We are not trying to do a virtual exhibition because we think a trade show has some very specific characteristics with personal contact, which is very hard to mimic online. But what you can do, and based on behavior, is you can create new connections, new networks where people talk about their business, display their new technology, and get connected. And that's the beauty of digital again. There are a lot of nice digital matchmaking systems and marketing automation where you can get connected to people who are part of your interest sphere. So, so yeah, so it's embracing technical digital with the best things of having face-to-face contact.
Well, I've seen a lot of examples of this, and I think there's a lot of room to grow, and I think this is one of the most beautiful innovations you have at this time, and this is something really contemporary, which I see a lot of industry leaders do. So a quick mention is that we are running a little bit out of time, so we are adding another 15 minutes because we started off a little later. So for the people that have to can't continue tuning in our session, we will record this. So if you have to go, we won't be bothered, maybe a little, but I mean, we're going to send you the recording afterwards. So please feel free to join, but if you have to leave, we understand that correctly. So back to you, Annette, on the hybrid events.
Yeah, so please go to the next slide. I will, because these are all examples of where this is our first one, so it's an experiment, but the only way to grow is to try and to make mistakes and to do great things. So this is our first one. Next slide. So, and what I wanted to say is that you said it already, there is a lot of online events, and it's difficult to find something which is at least a little bit as good as a face-to-face event. One of the last articles in a trade show magazine said that, you know, that's a lot of events online are still not there compared to the live events. So we still have a lot to do to improve that and to make it valuable. I mean, we don't organize things to organize, but it needs to be valuable for our customers. Next slide. So what I wanted to say, we can do safe face-to-face events. So in the RAI, we're ready and we're experimenting. Next slide. So for us, the journey continues. You can do this is specific Aquatech, and one of our, if you can take the next slide, one of our importance and lessons learned is that we focus on content, traffic, and measure everything. We grow our database, we do marketing automation, and with that we can load our events and help clients focus on things they learn from the market, innovation, thought leadership, and of course create the best connections. That's why we're doing it. So next slide. So what our next challenge will be, like Milena said, we're boosting our YouTube channel as well. We had an Aquatech TV strategy a couple of years ago, and we're going to make that alive again. But we want to create great content with some founding partners, make some very nice storytelling, personal interviews at a table and broadcast these. So that is one of our new projects. It's still in the very early stages, but I wanted to share it with you that this is one of the new features we're going to add. So next slide.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eyes peeled for this, because this is something that it would be very renewing. So this is going to be a great innovation to have as an addition. So having said that, Annette, I have a lot of questions coming in for the both of you. So if Milena and Annette, if you can have a couple more minutes to stay with us, then we have people lined up to ask you questions. So the first question that I have, and Roy, are you still there? You can turn on your camera and your microphone, because I believe you have a question for Annette.
Yeah, hi there. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
I hope you can hear me.
We can.
So I won't be turning on the camera. I don't want to scare too many people away. So
Oh.
we'll just go for the microphone. So yeah, thanks, Farah. So Annette, I have a question for you. So I'm someone that's worked in sponsorship and exhibition sales for a number of years now, and of course, COVID decimated, as we know, for obvious reasons, live event calendars. So all event organizers rushed to embrace the virtual experience, which was of course understandable to protect bottom lines. But it then occurred to me that it becomes increasingly difficult to differentiate yourself if everyone is rushing to, you know, V fairs or iVents, that type of thing. So despite the power and the need for the human touch, do you think that some brands should in fact hold off by going virtual, and should maybe wait until at the very least they could do a hybrid event or go fully face-to-face again? Because if you're going to deliver a substandard online experience, when doors of event halls can be thrown open once again, that substandard live event, substandard online event may not do you any favors. So is there almost like a tipping point? There some shows almost big to go digital and to go virtual. So what would your recommendation on that be?
Unfortunately, I don't have a glass ball and can tell you when we will reopen events. As you know, in China, they already are doing. And for me, the question would be, what are you wanting to achieve? Are you in need of new leads? Are you in the need of branding exposure, or a podium, a stage for thought leadership? And okay, there are no physical events. So what are your alternatives? And I think then you need to look at the complete range of online alternatives, and not only at the online events. It should be again part of your strategy, because doing an online event is as demanding for an organization as a live event. You should have people there during the day, but all your marketing materials should be spot on. I mean, videos should be sharp, and I think a part of the disappointment comes from there, because if you do a live event, then you have the very charming Milena who sees you at the door, and then you forget about things that maybe were not so good at a certain moment. But if you do online events, and your marketing materials, your exposure, your staff should be spot on. So I understand the concern, but I think that a company really needs to look in their own company, what do I need and what do I want to achieve? And again, make targets, because otherwise you just go in blind and then I don't know if it's a real alternative. Did that answer your question?
Roy, was that an answer to your question?
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, thanks so much for that, Annette. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Well, next question we have is from Andrew. Andrew, are you still there?
I'm still here.
You are still here. So I think you have multiple questions because I've been receiving a lot of chats from you. So fire away.
All right, I don't want to hug the conversation, leave it for other people, but one question to Annette and one to Milena. So Annette, have you seen in other events, maybe not in the water sector, anything which was done, different to what you've done in Aquatech that you particularly liked, perhaps something in the B2C area? And my question to Milena is, do you ever think that events will play the same role post-coronavirus lockdowns as they did before we had the lockdowns?
To answer your question, there were what I liked were these events where there were a little bit, they seem to be a little bit more personal. Someone opening a virtual conference door and say, "Hey, Annette, welcome for being here." And but I need to say I've been looking at many, and it's kind of tough. And I think we all tried too hard to copy a live event to an online event. So, and I think the tooling needs to grow, and I think it's different. People will not go to an online event the whole day, like they go 2 days. They block 2 days in their calendar for Aquatech, but they will not sit 2 days for a live event. So that's where you need to play with your audience, with your topics, with your content, to make sure that everyone has something to gain from this live event, even if it's only for half an hour.
And Andrea, to your question, I think that events will not play the same role, but even a more strategic role from now onwards, because we will be more selective as exhibitors, and also the audience will be more selective as visitors. The content needs to be differentiated in order to attract the proper visitors. So I do think that live events or these hybrid events will keep being part of an integrated communication strategy, not the strategy itself, but probably a central part of it. And definitely there are very few things, or probably none, that can replace the face-to-face interactions and the intimacy that is built during events. So we hope that the situation will allow, and we as a company believe that we will keep having presence at strategic key events.
Well, thanks, Milena. I have another question coming in for the both of you, and that's from Tom. He asks, how can you recreate those spontaneous meetings or moments from physical events online? Or do you not think this can be achieved through Zoom alone?
It also depends, spontaneous meetings with whom, with your target audience, of course. Internally, we've used a lot of Teams meeting and virtual coffee breaks and virtual lunch breaks, and different types of finding an alternative to what we all miss, this human touch. But reaching out to customers, we were discussing quite a lot in EMEA to create a virtual plant tour for our Global Water Technology Center in Tarragona, or for our facility in Chauny, where customers could actually walk around the tour the plant and see and spontaneously ask questions. But all our key stakeholders really believe that it cannot replace these interactions. And what we are just aiming really is the human touch, a call, FaceTime, and then hope that it will change again.
Is that something you agree to, Annette?
Yes, I think for the spontaneous meetings, that is difficult, and that feels also. I did some network carousels in some virtual events, which seems very odd. Then you are placed in front of someone, and
Right.
sometimes it was really fun, and sometimes it was really not fun. But you know, the advantage of digital, and you know, for ages event organizers try to get their audience, to educate their audience that they should make appointments before they go to the show, that they fill out a profile so we can guide them to the right exhibitors, and we couldn't convince more than 25% to really prepare their visit. But I think this will be the advantage of this period. People will, I mean, online you can create better matches because that's all the digital planning stuff, which is an application, and hopefully that will and I think that will happen. That will be also a bigger part of the live event. That next to the very spontaneous experience, the value of the matches you're offering will be much more important. People will probably, for sure enough, the first couple of years, go to every event. They want to know upfront what they are going to do, who they are possible going to meet, to which innovations they are going to see. So here again, digital will play a very big part. But you know, the spontaneous meeting, bumping into each other in the hallway, I think you cannot mimic that online.
Well, having said that, I slowly want to move towards the takeaways for this session. So, Milena, you've listed some, Annette, you've listed the first takeaways for us. So, an integrated strategy is something we spoke about, and you mentioned that as well. Could you also share about your experiment, your measurements? What are your key takeaways and your rules of the road for the next half of 2020?
That we will keep on building on our building our community with online, offline, hybrid events, creating good connection, and so that is what we will do. We will start, you know, the aquatechie, but we maybe will do a hybrid event, a small event, or maybe organize executive roundtables, because this period also offers opportunities to do different things, smaller things. And for me, it's always important, you know, to be great, to try some things and to convince your management that sometimes you need to try different things. Partnerships, you know, we started to work with Tom, and we started to work with Emma, and other people outside of your own organization. They bring new knowledge to your organization, and that is very valuable. And also, you know, we have been very, I don't know how you say that in English. We have been very critical on ourselves with the measurements, and that is sometimes needed to do a different turn. So I think as a show organizer or as a company, I mean, look at your integrated strategy, experiment. This digital area has a lot of room for measurement. So and some of the things are not that expensive. And find sometimes new partners outside of your organization to find new leads or new ways, and enjoy the journey.
Well, that is important to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Enjoy
Yeah.
it. Well, thank you, Annette. Milena, your takeaways.
I couldn't agree more with Annette, and can add just the 3 points more. So basically, it's being selective, being strategic, and create good content and select the proper channels to distribute the content. So really making sure that the events are not just a tactic, but part of the plan. As I try to illustrate with this funny image I found. Don't forget that events are great, amazing, and build incredible return on investment, but they are not the only tactic. So again, have a plan, have your marketing plans and marketing communication plans ready, and integrate the events as one of them, and create compelling messages and content, and nurture your channels and your partners.
Well, thank you both for giving your takeaways and giving your insights and views on this. I think to summarize, it is safe to say that this game of hybrid events has already been starting, and the next following months and even years, we're just going to see the new innovations and the adaptations and the amplifying to the events we have. So it's going to be really interesting, and it's good to speak about topics like this just to give us more insight. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today.